Good evening. This is Congressman Nick Langworthy, and I want to thank you for joining me tonight. Tonight is our first telephone town hall meeting of the 2026 calendar year. I want to wish you and your family a happy new year. Hopefully had a joyous holiday season and had some great time with family. If you've ever joined one of my telephone town hall meetings before, welcome back. For those of you that are new and this is your first time, we are excited to have you here tonight. This is something I do every single month where I have the opportunity to update you directly on what's happening in Washington, D.C. and how I'm working for this district, but most importantly, so that I can hear from you about the issues that you care about and answer your questions. If this is your first time joining us, at any point during the call, if you have a question you'd like to ask, just press *3 on your phone. *3, and my staff will get you in line to ask your question. We're going to get to as many questions as we can here tonight, as we do each and every month. And there's a lot going on in the world right now, but we have hit the ground running in Washington to focus on delivering meaningful results for the American people. And yesterday, the House Republican Conference gathered for an all-day policy session where we came together to map out our plan for delivering for the rest of this Congress. We have one more year. This is our second day of our second session of the 119th Congress. We have a lot of pressing issues from health care to affordability to energy that we have to focus on. We also spent almost an hour and a half with the president to discuss his agenda and how we can collectively work together to support common sense policies that strengthen and protect American workers, American families, and American businesses. We have a lot of work to do. There is absolutely no question about it. But I know that the things we are fighting for have the support of the American people. We cannot continue the status quo that's given us $38 trillion in debt with poor outcomes. It's impossible to have a health care system that prioritizes the health of the American citizens and ensures quality and affordable and accessible health care while also spending responsibly. It is possible to do that. We can do better. We can make reforms. We can deliver these services that are vital, and we could do it with more respect for the American Treasury and really take on some of the profit lines of some of the companies that have exploded in their profitability since Obamacare went into effect. I can't imagine that there's a person on this call who just blindly throws money at a problem every month or every year without assessing whether or not it's being spent wisely or an efficient outcome for you or your family. You have to do it in your own household budget, and the government should be no different. As a reminder, if you're just joining us, press *3 on your phone if you want to ask a question and get in line to answer the questions. Everything we have been doing has been aimed at rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, and boy, is that needed. Just look at the scandal that came forward out of Minnesota as an example of what happens when no one is watching the bottom line. Today I participated in our House Oversight Committee hearing where we pulled back the veil on the massive fraud scandal that has a widespread, almost organized crime level of schemes that have targeted various state and federal social service programs for years that are based around the Somali population in Minnesota, with estimated losses ranging from hundreds of millions to potentially $9 billion. I said that right, not billion, not million. It's a staggering level of corruption. And who pays for that theft? It's the American taxpayer. We did that on borrowed money, folks. Every dollar that's wasted or was fraudulently spent is a corruption tax that we pay for. We've talked about that in New York for years, of the corruption taxes. When people are stealing and behaving badly, it is the taxpayer that pays. Those days are gone. We are going to restore accountability to our government, and we're going to have a subsequent hearing. Today was the whistleblowers. In the month of February, we have subpoenaed, or in the process of subpoenaing, Governor Tim Walz, as well as Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, to come in and testify about their role and their inaction in all of this fraud. We need smarter spending, we need lower taxes and higher wages, and more economic opportunities for people across Western New York and the Southern Tier and across all of America. That's how we will continue working on an American revival, because doing nothing is not an option. This week, we're going to pass our appropriations bills that responsibly lowers spending and puts guardrails on out-of-control agencies acting outside of their congressional authority. This was the result of bipartisanship. It's a novel idea, but both sides work together, hopefully in a one great step towards avoiding another shutdown, working together to get 3 departmental budget bills out of the way. And I'm pleased that they've come to an agreement that puts the threat of that shutdown off the table, and we have to keep working from now until January 30th so we don't have another shutdown. And that's just a small fraction of what we're working on this week in this month, and I'm sure you all have many questions from Venezuela to the Affordable Health Care Act subsidies to energy costs. So we're going to get right into the discussion. Press star 3 if you want to enter that discussion. We're going to take our first question is going to go to Marita.
And how nice to talk
Hello,
to you.
Marita. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. How nice to talk to you.
Yes, where are you calling from tonight?
Newark Valley, New York.
Wonderful.
My question for you has to do with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his vaccine debacle, and his dietary guideline debacles. But let me also comment on everything that you just commented on. Sir, I'm sorry, but your accountability is ridiculous. As far as I'm concerned, you have done nothing but raise prices, and you have done nothing but support this president who has cost the American taxpayer more in 1 year and has raised the debt trillions of dollars in 1 year. I am totally against your policies. But if you'd like, you can simply address the vaccine and the dietary guidelines.
Well, it's great to know where you stand, and obviously we agree to disagree on much, and you're out of step obviously with a lot of the values of this district, but it doesn't mean your opinions aren't appreciated. Specifically, what are your concerns about the vaccine schedule?
Specifically, as a retired nurse practitioner, this vaccine schedule is not based on any firm scientific guidelines. This has been a major debacle. This person, Kennedy Jr., should not be in charge of anything vaccine related. The board that he's working with do not have good quality backgrounds in this area. And the same goes for the dietary guidelines. All you have done is created guidelines to get people to eat more beef. You have turned the dietary guidelines upside down. What is your opinion of that?
I think the dietary guidelines are probably more in line with a lot of nutritionists that you talk to on a regular basis as to how you should be healthier and take in less carbohydrates and sugar. I mean, they've flipped the script a little bit because the conventionalism of 15, 20 years ago is far different than it is today, where there was more emphasis on grains and flour-based products than there are today, and certainly sugar is something that is a gateway to a lot of bad outcomes for people. So
and vegetables are at the bottom of the list. Makes a lot of sense to me.
Vegetables are adjacent to the meats in dairy in the inverted pyramid that they put out today, and it's pretty much half fruits and vegetables were basically half of that pyramid. So
on previous town halls, you have addressed vaccines. You have commented that you hoped that he wouldn't mess with the vaccine schedule, and yet he has.
I didn't say the vaccine schedule. They have not. All right. Can I get a word in edgewise, or are you going to try to dominate the full conversation?
Absolutely. You've had a lot of words. Go ahead.
I have a responsibility to speak to 778,000 of my constituents. This announcement reclassifies.
And you don't.
Okay. Well, I may not speak the way you believe, ma'am, but I believe that I represent the vast majority of the constituents in this district. I'm sorry that you and I don't see eye to eye, but you certainly don't seem to want me to get in a word in edgewise. So
that's not true.
Okay.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
Now, you've interrupted me every time I've tried to start speaking. So the announcement reclassifies vaccines into three categories: immunizations recommended for all children, immunizations recommended for certain high-risk populations, and immunizations based on shared clinical decision-making. Now, the immunizations recommended for all children, the CDC will continue to recommend that all children are vaccinated against diphtheria, tetanus, whooping cough, Haemophilus influenza type B, the pneumococcal conjugate, polio, measles, mumps, rubella, and human papillomavirus, for which there is international consensus, as well as chickenpox. There is also an immunization recommendation for certain high-risk populations, which adds a whole additional layer. So, I certainly appreciate your medical background. There are a lot of different opinions on vaccines. I know that the concern I have as the parent of a young child is how many vaccines come at such an early age. And spreading these vaccines out, I don't think is the wrong thing. So I think that you still will have plenty of vaccine choice between you and your pediatrician. No one is demanding that you not vaccinate your child. There's been no illegality assigned to vaccinations.
Well, quite frankly, the Pediatric Society has come out against these vaccine schedules, and people are urged to talk to their medical providers about that. That we agree on. But
I talk to my medical provider. I don't say, hey, what did the Secretary of Health and Human Services or any politician say about something? I actually talk to medical professionals to make decisions for myself and my family. And I think that's what common sense people do every single day. So you can get all inflamed in rhetoric because it cuts against.
No, not rhetoric.
What? Okay. You obviously dislike the president, anything associated with the president. You hate RFK. It's been very clear. But the idea that we're trying to get people to, back to the nutritional pyramid, to eat less carbs and sugar would be right in line with basically everything that's led to the obesity crisis in America.
And by the way, as far as it goes for health care, I just talked to someone today whose ACA premium went from $600 for her and her husband to $1,200 for her and her husband. That is ridiculous. Meanwhile, the government is trying to get $926 billion for a defense fund. That is ludicrous. You could tell the president that nobody supports him going into Cuba, Mexico, or Greenland. No one supports him on that.
I thank you for your call. You've
certainly
had your opportunity to get your word in edgewise.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, and have a wonderful evening. Hope you have a lovely night. I mean, we take all callers here. This is not a screened environment. We have to get people into the queue, but we certainly don't discount differing opinions. This is America. This is democracy, and we can have these conversations and do it in a civil tone. And so I'm grateful, and we'll agree to disagree. Next, we will go to Deb.
Hello.
Hi, Deb. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Where are you calling from?
Portville.
Oh, well, welcome to the call. What's on your mind?
Yes, something I've always wondered about. Like we say we're like $38 trillion in debt, and there's always this threat of Social Security running out, and healthcare costs and stuff like that. But then, like the next day, we're giving billions of dollars to other countries. So I've just always wondered, like, how does that work? Like, I know there's not two pots of money. So I'm just curious how we're, like, in debt and don't have money for stuff here, but yet we always have money to send to other countries. I guess I just kind of wondered how that worked.
Deb, you bring up an excellent point. And the one difference between, say, the federal government and the state government is somewhere along the line in their infinite wisdom, they said the federal government could deficit spend. So we spend more than we take in. and we issue Treasury bills to raise revenues. And when people invest in Treasury bills, they're buying U.S. debt. Now, that's not all held by American citizens. It's held by foreign entities, too. And that's something that I have long been concerned about, is how much foreign interest is in our national debt. And what if those foreign actors stop buying the national debt each and every time? And it has to be refinanced. And when it gets refinanced at higher interest rates when the rates are high, like they have been for the last 4 years or so, at a time of inflation. And that's why we need to get our house in order. Our largest pot of money is spent on so-called entitlement programs, and that's Social Security, that's Medicare, Medicaid, those programs that Americans are entitled to, and that is legally mandated spending. That is not discretionary. Despite some of the political rhetoric that you may have heard this year, no one's touched a dime in Social Security. Social Security benefits haven't been cut. Nothing has been changed to Social Security because it's illegal for us to change anything in Social Security. It's governed separately than the executive branch. There would have to take an entire lawmaking exercise for us to change the way Social Security works. But we should not be deficit spending. We should be decreasing the deficit. And, one of those things that I know many people have varying opinions about the president's work with tariffs, but it's raising revenue for the American Treasury to decrease that deficit. We need to claw our way out of this. We created the largest deficit spending period in American history during COVID is an emergency response, and then we continued, with a few off-budget bills like the Inflation Reduction Act, which these are multi-trillion-dollar exercises, and dug a very deep hole and increased the national debt about $10 trillion in a matter of 4 years. Very dangerous situation. But in the only saving grace we have is all the countries of the world created a lot of debt. The only problem is when your debt can't get refinanced on the world stage, and the markets don't buy the debt. That's when the country becomes insolvent and can't pay its bills. As you've heard, countries like Greece and others that have had to get bailed out over the years because they couldn't refinance their debt because people did not believe that they were capable of paying it back. That's why I don't screw around with things like the debt ceiling. I think those are very serious things. The full faith and credit of the U.S. government has always got to be respected. So we need to get out of the habit of deficit spending. We're a long way off from getting there, but incrementally we are spending less discretionally in this year than we did last year, and in last year than we did the year before. We have to lower spending and stop spending at COVID-era levels because we can no longer run the printing press and just keep printing money like it doesn't have any value. And it's tough to get people in Washington, D.C. to focus on that.
Yeah, okay.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, Deb.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we're going to go to Vita. Hi, Vita.
Hi. I did not expect you to take my call. How are you tonight?
I'm doing very well. Where are you calling from tonight?
I'm calling from Appalachian.
Appalachian, the famous mafia raid in Appalachian.
Yeah. Not far from where I live. So,
what's on your mind?
My original question had to do with the fraud and welfare, but you addressed that. So I had told the person who took my call that I also had another question about Venezuela. So I'll lay out my questions and then I'll let you go ahead and answer. First off, I do want to kind of, for your last caller, while you were on, I did just wanted to check something just to kind of verify what you're saying. And of course, all of it is true. Entitlement spending is what we spend most of our money on and like defense. A lot of people think we spend a lot on defense, which we do, but not as much as the entitlement spending. However, the Big Beautiful Bill will increase our deficit, according to the Congressional Budget Office, by $3.4 trillion. So just so there's that. But that's not what I wanted to ask you. So what I'd like to ask you is, it's a combination. What is your stance on invading sovereign countries such as Venezuela? I want to put one caveat out there. Maduro is a bad guy, and I do believe that he deserves to, be held accountable for anything that he has done. However, I don't think drugs is the answer, so I hope that you won't say that because we did just pardon a drug trafficker. Also, shouldn't military action go through Congress? I feel like Congress has been sidestepped a lot in this last year, and I feel that it's sad that Congress has abdicated their constitutional their part, what they're supposed to be doing, and it bothers me because I have faith in my government to run the way it should, and I believe that there should be checks and balances, and I believe Congress has been sidestepped. And finally, why are we continuing to support lawlessness? Like, for instance, today we saw an ICE agent, and we've all seen the videos at this point from all different angles, murder a mother of a 4-year-old. So I would like, you can address all that, and I'll just sit back and let you go.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. You gave me plenty to answer there. Let's start with Venezuela, and I will be careful because I received a classified briefing today. We did not invade Venezuela. We did an extraction from Venezuela, and going in the Department of Justice in 2020 indicted Maduro and his wife and his extended family. Those indictments have been freshened. They asked support from the Department of Defense for an extraction plan, and there were plenty of warnings to the Maduro regime that things would happen, and he flouted that, and eventually they took action. This was not a declaration of war. We do not have boots on the ground. We do not have any occupying force. We don't have equipment on the ground. It was just a request from the DOJ. The U.S. military conducted that apprehension mission in Venezuela, and they were going to bring justice to 2 indicted persons who are now in American custody in New York State. This was a law enforcement operation, and it was conducted by the Department of War in conjunction with the DEA, and it was at the request of the Department of Justice. So there was no war powers necessary. I mean, I won't disagree with you that the executive branch has taken far too much ground in the overall of the last probably 7 or 8 administrations since probably FDR was in the White House. I mean, the executive branch has become far too large comparatively to Congress. If you study our history in, century or more ago, I mean, Congress had a much larger role than it does today. But the growth in the size and the scope of the federal government has led to that, and the large government that we have now has created a bit of a power swell within the executive that I think needs to be re-leveled. But we've had many presidents, whether it's Bill Clinton and his actions in Bosnia and Serbia, Barack Obama and his shooting missiles into various countries without any sort of authorization from Congress. I mean, this isn't the first time that a president has taken some military action and not come to Congress to get an authorization. And the fact that we do not have personnel on the ground, we do not have any military presence there, I don't believe that we have invaded the country because we were in and out of there in about 2 hours. So there's that. Let's talk about the ICE thing today. This is a tragedy because someone's dead today. But we have got to stop the vilification of our law enforcement, and people need to do not impede a law enforcement exercise, whether you agree with it or not. I mean, you have a right to disagree with it. You have a right to protest. You don't have the right to interfere with a law enforcement exercise. And the vilification of our law enforcement going on, I mean, I know the men and women of the Buffalo ICE office that are responsible for all of upstate New York. And, you know, they're faced with a lot of hateful, nasty rhetoric. And, you know, we're in this position because we eliminated our border for 4 years. And we had an outright invasion, and certainly no one wants the outcome that we have in Minnesota tonight. But I'm sure that this will be thoroughly investigated. I mean, I don't see it quite the way you see it. I see that an officer shot in self-defense as a car was coming towards he and his colleague. And I'm not looking to have an argument. You have your opinion. I have mine. And I think that body cam footage is going to probably tell a lot of the story here, but we have an unfortunate and unnecessary situation, someone trying to impede a law enforcement action that is a very illegal act, and certainly driving your car towards a law enforcement officer is not something that's in the bounds of the law. So this is a very avoidable situation. You can be against our immigration enforcement, but you can't take matters into your own hands and try to impede that law enforcement action.
Right. And you know, okay, so I'm just going to, because I allowed you, you know, I didn't interrupt or anything, but I took some notes.
I'm not going to interrupt you.
So, all right. So, yeah, you're right. You know, we went after Noriega and Panama, and I'm old enough to remember all of that. Matter of fact, I'm much older than maybe I sound. However, as far as the body cam and the ICE agents, I also know an ICE agent actually out of Buffalo, and I am not against proper immigration. My father is an immigrant. I am a first-generation American. I do not disagree with coming to this country legally. I do disagree with you in that our borders were so porous, and I do disagree that the current ICE people that are working for ICE right now are actually the same type of people that I know out of the ICE Buffalo office. There are a lot of people coming on because of these big bonuses that they're giving, and I don't believe that they're trained properly. It has already been stated that officer was not wearing body cam footage. I have seen several different videos showing him. She was trying to back up, and yes, you're right. Maybe she should not have been there, but she doesn't deserve to be dead either, and we should all be able to agree on that. I do have one last question, and maybe somebody else will ask it too, but when I was talking about sovereign nations, also Venezuela, you're right. We're no boots on the ground. You're right about that. But when Stephen Miller gets up and talks about the greatest armada in history surrounding Venezuela and talking about going to Cuba and taking over Greenland, don't you find that disturbing?
I don't believe that we're going to take over Greenland or Cuba or Mexico. We are trying to shut down a drug mule system that has infiltrated our country. That's why there has been a blockade around Venezuela, because this cartel has been exporting hundreds of tons of cocaine, which much of it, involves fentanyl that ends up on our shores, that goes into our small communities and kills people and ruins lives.
But I mean, the cocaine's been going to Europe, and it's very well documented, and fentanyl is coming from different parts of South America. And yes, you are right. Listen, my young nephew died from a fentanyl overdose, and there is nothing more. Thank you. There is nothing more than I want than that to be solved, because this is not. There are so many families affected by drug overdoses. But when we have the president's advisor come out and talk about, when I first came out, the Venezuela thing came out, they said it was a law enforcement operation. And with that, I said, okay, let's take a step back and let's watch and see what happens. I'm more of a moderate person, okay? So don't count me as some crazy liberal. I am very progressive, but I have a moderate thought to me. So I said, let me take a step back. But then we talk about war and armadas and taking over Greenland, and now I worry this is not where I want my tax dollars to go.
Well,
this is not what I work hard on.
I'm just going to say, Stephen Miller doesn't work for me. He goes on TV and says things that are provocative. I think sometimes he goes on TV to say things that certainly get the other side very fired up. I don't believe there's any will from the administration or anyone else to take Greenland by force like everyone seems to have their hair on fire about. I do think it has a strategic interest to the United States. It would be great if it was owned by the United States, but unless there's a diplomatic solution, I don't.
Denmark.
Well, but it's in Denmark claims it's the people of Greenland, but we certainly have a lot of military holdings there and prop up the economy with all of that military holding. So it is of extreme value, and if there's a diplomatic way to get it done, great. If not, we'll just have to continue to be based there. I don't believe there's any threat of any sort of forceful taking of anyone else. But we have got to shut down the drug cartels. I'm very concerned of all the Latin American countries that are actually run by the cartels and not by their governments that may or may not be propped up. You know, you have Cuba, which is a dictatorship. It is not a democracy. You know, it's the drug money and the illegal activity in our Western Hemisphere, like Maduro, that is propping up a lot of that. But I really thank you for your call, and appreciate you being.
Thank you for
absolutely for being with me tonight. We're going to go to Barb next. Hi, Barb.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Where are you calling from tonight?
I'm calling from Buffalo.
Okay, thank you for being with us. What's on your mind?
So I want to thank you for everything that you're doing, and I want to tell you that I do support everything that is going on. I support what we've done in Venezuela. I think that we had every right to go in and get Maduro. I support what ICE is doing. I think that they have a right to defend themselves, and I think that if the Democrats didn't keep on taking and spreading the things that they were spreading about our ICE agents or making them look like villains, they wouldn't have to use force to protect themselves. I support everything that President Trump is doing. I support the tariffs. My question is, why aren't the Republicans standing up in public and explaining everything like you're explaining today to people as to why we're doing the things we're doing, why the efforts are being done to take the actions that we're taking? We spend so much time, we're talking about, we're doing great things. We're not coming back and saying, the Affordable Health Care Act is why people's premiums went up so high this year. So I guess to me,
I understand what you're getting at. Can I jump in?
Yeah,
Okay. You want to know why Republicans aren't on the airwaves talking about all the things that we're accomplishing? There's a reason I do these calls, because I know I can't count on the media to tell people what I'm working on. And the incredible bias that we have in local press, whether it be TV or print, I mean, the Buffalo News doesn't write anything that I'm working on unless it's them trying to attack me for something or vilify me in some way. TV news gives you 30 seconds to get your point across. And I certainly appear my fair share on television, and we talk about what we're doing when we're back home. But you have to talk directly to people. That's why we have a weekly email newsletter. And if anyone hasn't signed up for our email newsletter, please go to our website at langworthy.house.gov. I send it once a week. It's everything I'm working on, the bills that we're sponsoring, what we're passing, what's happening, because I don't want the media in between me and my constituents. I want to tell you directly, and we have probably 100,000 people on that email list right now, just like we have I think 4,800 people on the line right now. And this is an opportunity to talk to a large swath of the district, and for me to not be have a reporter trying to put a slant on it, chop up the interview, only get their point across. So I can't speak to why every one of my colleagues doesn't do the same thing. Some of them do it in their district, and you might not see it. I'm the only one in our party that has the Buffalo area, but I just don't believe that in this day and age we can count on local press because it's been stripped to the bone. There used to be 10 reporters at every one of these stations. Now there's half of that or less, and we've got big media conglomeration where big companies are trying to buy all the stations, and they're trying to do it less with more and have less local origination. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, you always know where I stand on an issue. I don't hide, from interviews, or I'm always, vocal with what I'm fighting for, what I'm doing, and whether you like it or you don't like it, you know where I'm coming from, and that's kind of the way I try to carry myself. But I do think Republicans, we accomplished an awful lot in budget reconciliation that we have to go out on the stump and tell people about, and a lot of it you'll see when you're filing your income taxes this year. We have the largest seniors tax break in American history. 82% of seniors will now have their Social Security free of taxation. So all except the wealthiest seniors will have their Social Security without any tax on it. And you already paid tax your whole life to get the Social Security, so you shouldn't be paying Social Security on or taxes on your Social Security. And I know that those folks that don't have a current tax obligation, there's not anything that is helpful to them, but there's many that do. If they want to continue to have a part-time job, then their Social Security income gets taxed, and that's wrong. So we righted that wrong for 82% of our seniors. There's victories like that. No tax on overtime. We have such a manufacturing base, an agricultural base here in Western New York and the Southern Tier. That's going to put more money in people's pockets, and I'd rather it be in your pocket than in Washington, D.C., because it's your money.
Agree.
So I will certainly be out there talking about the things we've accomplished. But the president challenged us to do that the other day. He's like, you got to go out and sell what you've done. And I think that's somewhere where we've fallen short. And I've been less than impressed at some of the efforts of congressional leadership on that as well. But thank you very much for being with me tonight, Barb. We're going to try to get to as many of our callers as we can tonight. We're going to go to Raymond next. Hi, Raymond.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Where are you calling from tonight, Raymond?
I'm from Freedom, New York, down around Arcade.
We need a little more freedom in New York.
Yes, we do.
What's on your mind?
I'll tell you right now, I'm 100% for everything that our president's doing. He's doing a great job. He's cleaning everything up. There's only one concern I got, and it's right here in New York. Everywhere gas is going down. But if you drive right downtown Arcade, it's still $3.19 a gallon.
Now,
I know we're at the end of a distribution line. I know we're way out in Buffalo, but you can drive over to Springville and it'll only drop 10 cents. It'll go to $3.09. Now I'm seeing it across the country at under $3. So $2.89, $2.87. When's that going to come here? I mean, when are they going to get Hochul off her butt and get this state off its butt and reduce the taxes they're hitting us with on our fuel costs.
It would instantaneously help the economy to
lower
fuel prices. I mean, I saw Colorado bragging at $1.98 the other day,
right.
And I do expect when this Venezuelan oil gets sold on the open market, which it has not been able to be done in a long time, that will lead to price of a barrel of oil to go down, which should show a correlation at the pump. But you're right, New York taxes gasoline too much, and our rural areas, the suppliers, and we're going to dig into this in a little more public way because. I know I hear from a lot of folks in Chautauqua County, and as I drive through there,
it's high.
It's high. I paid when I filled up when I left my home to go to Chautauqua County. I paid $3.09. When I got to Chautauqua County, I looked at the sign. It said $3.39. Now that's ridiculous because I only drove an hour down the thruway.
Exactly.
And I am going to call these companies out directly and make them explain to me in writing why there's such a disparity in prices from one county over. I think that is an absolute abomination.
I mean it's not just
that is real money on a tank full of gas.
It's not just county though. It's one town.
Yeah.
I mean, I just drove from my town tonight. It's 3:19 here in Arcade. Okay. I drove to Springville to go to Walmart. It's 3:09 over there. That's still high.
And sometimes the big gas stations have a better deal, and the big gas stations buy more, so they can sell it, cheaper than some of the smaller mom and pop gas stations. And there's going to be variations in price. But why in our rural southern tier counties that are actually closer to the Pennsylvania oil refineries,
right?
Why are they paying a much higher price? I assure you, I am going to do some things here in the next couple of weeks to go ask those questions in a very public way of the oil companies because I know that one of the county executives in Chautauqua was trying to get the attorney general to look at price gouging. She didn't do anything with it. So we're going to call some people out and see if they can give us some real answers as to why. And maybe if we rattle a few cages, they'll realize people are watching.
Well, that'd be great. The other thing I had to ask was that why doesn't the Republican majority leaders in Congress and the Senate attack more money in the New York State to flip it back red?
Well, there's only so many, and I can't talk about electioneering too much here because this is a governmental phone call. The ideology in New York State is not yours as a whole. There's 3 million more Democrats and Republicans in the state. That's a matter of fact. And there's just not as many seats that are in our majority as a part of that. But I can't really get into too much of that here on this governmental phone call. But it's you fish where the fish are biting.
Okay.
So, but let's keep the faith. Thank you for calling tonight. Thank you, and give my best to all the people in freedom. Next, let's talk to Frank.
Yes.
Hi, Frank.
Hey. Okay, I'm on.
Yes. Where are you calling from, Frank?
Lancaster.
Okay.
Tariffs.
Yes.
I just don't understand. Where is there any explanation on earth that tariffs will improve the economy? There's no way that that's true. Every penny of tariffs is paid for by me and everybody listening to this phone call, and everything is affected by it. I went to Wegmans to get a few things, and these products that I got are up an additional $2 in just the last few weeks. And they had already shot up because of COVID and other things. Once big companies go ahead and raise things, good luck trying to get them to bring them down. That was one of the things that came up during the election time last year was which individuals running, Biden and Harris, said that they were going to work on trying to get different sectors of the economy to bring down their prices after they had gone up as a result of a very unusual and special circumstance with the COVID. And so the tariffs are like everything, Nick. I don't understand how you guys who are Republicans can. There's just no way to defend that, and it is completely against everything that every one of you said when you were running. Okay.
So I'm going to jump in here on tariffs. I mean, obviously, we want to see better trade deals for the United States of America. That hasn't been the case in the last 30 years in this country. I mean, we've watched in areas like the Southern Tier in Western New York, how many jobs have we lost to other countries for a race to the bottom on price?
Good point. I knew you were going to bring that up. I just want to ask you, do you know one person, name one person that has gotten a job as a result of tariffs?
In the last 6 months? But there is more investment from foreign entities building companies.
You're in Congress.
You don't need to raise your voice.
But you're in Congress, and you are constantly putting out the Trump doctrine, everything that you write and say, and you're telling me you don't know one person who's gotten a job as a result of what it is that you've been supporting?
I know that. Well, you're jumping down my throat for a specific name of a person that's been hired due to tariffs. That's a question that's ridiculous, but you can't argue with the fact that so many companies have announced that they're bringing their manufacturing from other countries and reinvesting right here in the United States to avoid paying the tariffs. I mean, this is about releveling the playing field so we actually produce things in this country again. We have exported so much of our manufacturing. We saw it during COVID when you couldn't get a single supply because the supply chains were all overseas. I mean, Joe Biden started the CHIPS Act so that we could bring a critical industry back to the United States because we had dealt ourselves completely out of business there. The tariffs have brought countries to the table and created landmark trade deals, whether the European Union, Japan, many other countries have now landmark trade deals that are fair to the United States again. And that is something that, and there's a lot more negotiations going on. And we got more announcements that will come.
If that's true, you can't name me one person. I asked you the simplest question.
You asked me to
name one person.
Of an individual person that's been hired by a company that came here just because a lot of those companies are under construction. You don't build a factory in 6 months. I mean, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars in new investment coming into this country. Now, we have Micron coming to the United States of America. That's going to employ thousands and thousands of people. And you have chip manufacturers, you have medium tech, you have a pharmaceutical
How come you guys
industry.
are changing your story, though? So now you're saying that factories and industries cannot be built and reprogrammed overnight. Just like Trump said he was going to end the wars. He said he's going to end the wars before he even got inaugurated.
Sir,
and
I know you don't like the president. I'm trying to explain
but
my
just listen to
personal
me.
perspective.
Okay, I don't like the president.
I have listened to you. I get it. I get it. You don't like the president.
Right, but he didn't end the wars. He didn't end the wars. And you haven't lowered prices. They're up higher. I just went to Wegmans last night, and everything I bought is up higher. Everything, Nick.
I shop every single week, too, my friend, and I cannot agree with you that every single product has gone up.
Everything I bought last night went up.
I'm not going to argue with you about every single item in your cart.
Okay, and then let me just move on real quickly here.
Grocery prices, I have listened to you, and I'm going to give my answer, okay? The groceries blew through the roof during COVID. They climbed even higher as the inflation roared out of control. Inflation by every metric has slightly come down. And I'm not declaring victory. We're a long way off. We need to raise the value of a dollar bill again. And that comes with Washington spending less money and us getting more production here at home.
Okay, but that's not true. What you just said is that by every metric or in every metric category that prices have come down. It's actually
I said inflation has come down. I didn't say
inflation has gone up across the board. Inflation has gone up across the board because of you and Trump.
Okay, thank you for your time, sir.
I got one more thing about health care.
You
can listen to one more.
You
can listen to one more.
What would you like to answer?
You get to go on TV and say all kinds of stuff all the time, Nick, and nobody gets asked holds you accountable. I want to know why health.
I get held accountable every single day. I got 778,000 bosses.
I want to know why health care is even on the table. Why in a country, if it's the greatest country in the world, and I dropped dead of a heart attack a few years ago. I was dead for an hour and a half. Okay? Why is health care on the table? Why isn't everybody who's a citizen in the United States given the same medical coverage? We could have one payer. It would streamline people. I had something with the medical people this week, and they're so busy trying to talk from one company to the other with their different computer networks and their paperwork requirements, and these people aren't able to use their talent to just focus on helping you. That would be a tremendous. Why is health care a thing for the Republicans? Why don't you want to?
If you want a single payer system like Canada has, explain to me why there's so many Canadian license plates at our hospitals and medical facilities.
You tell me if the New York State Exchange did not exist, and I didn't have that when I had my heart attack a few years ago, Nick, was the hospital going to put the body by the curb on recycling day? Is that what we're to?
No, I'm talking about rationed care.
From this country.
Rationed care. And if they decided, oh, you're 80 years old, you don't deserve a hip replacement because you're not going to live long enough.
Okay, so we don't have ration care. We don't have ration care. We have this ACA system, which is imperfect, and you guys don't have any improvements to make to it. Okay, vote for the thing to go ahead and put those subsidies in for the people who need it. I don't happen to be one of them at this particular point, but why don't you vote for that and then go ahead and work cooperatively with the Democrats? Nobody's against you, Nick. They just want you to tell the truth. Start telling the truth and stop lying for that. Stop lying for that nut in the White House.
Thank you for being on with us tonight. Let's talk about the Affordable Care Act subsidies for a minute. And this is something that's gotten an awful lot of attention. And there's a lot of misinformation. I mean, for one, the public doesn't have any grasp of how many people are actually on Obamacare. Obamacare, when it was created like 15 years ago, is something that did not take off. Some people think that half of the country's on Obamacare. There's actually 7% of U.S. citizens that are enrolled in Obamacare. Of that, there is a much smaller number that qualify for the enhanced premium tax credits, which was a COVID-era emergency spending program that was designed to go for 5 years. That papered over the increases in natural cost increases of premiums and has created a funding cliff. The Democrats would like to bring that forward, that COVID-era emergency spending, in perpetuity. And there's people as high as 700% of the poverty line that are getting this free coverage. In certainly, I guess our last caller that believes in socialized medicine think that everyone should just get their government-funded health care. Most people in this country are still on, if you're not on Medicare or Medicaid, which is for the truly impoverished and disabled, and the Medicare is for our seniors. Most people are on employer-based plans. 7% are on the exchange, on the Obamacare exchange. The subsidies that are in law will remain. There was a top-up that some people enrolled in. There's about 7,000 people in our district that enroll in it. And I take this very seriously. I want to see a bipartisan solution, not a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. We need to tackle the high rate of increases in cost in health care for everyone, whether you have employer-based coverage, because your contribution on that side of the aisle has gone up. The cost to the Treasury of delivering Medicare and Medicaid has exploded. And certainly the cost for people that are losing the subsidy, it's going up. But we have to look at the whole thing. Subsidizing the insurance company's profit margin when insurance companies' stocks have gone up 1,700% in this window of time is not something that I'm in the business of doing. I'd rather see choice go into the marketplace, allow you to not just have some little geographic boundary to pick a plan from, but let's have competition in the marketplace. Let's totally revamp the system and allow people to have more choice and have, if you're due a subsidy, have the choice be with the customer, not with the insurance company, because, the previous caller had a good point. There's way too much shuffling around on pre-authorizations and insurance companies and giving them the opportunity to say no. They're in the business of saying no because they don't want to pay the bill. The insurance companies are not the hero of any story. And further enriching them at the expense of the Treasury and at the expense of better health care outcomes is not something that we should just do blindly. So today the Democrats put forward a measure to just extend this for 3 straight years, and I did not vote to allow that to proceed. I do want to see if the Senate sends us back what they're working on, which is a compromise, where hopefully there is a short-term extension with guardrails and fixes and reforms and something that is equitable. Because just saying just pay more for a very narrow band of the population does nothing to help the fact that you got a whole lot of people that their health care has gone up and they have no ability to have someone fighting for them. So we're looking for something a little more collaborative and that affects a lot more of the American taxpayers than just a blanket extension for 3 straight years at full cost of the enhanced premium tax credit, which was COVID-era spending. Next, we're going to go to Mary. Hi, Mary.
Hi, how are you? I'm from Marilla.
Hi, it's great to hear from you. What's on your mind?
Well, a whole lot since I've been listening to all these people.
This is what democracy is all about.
Oh, yeah. But I got to say, that first caller was like way off the mark because I'm in the medical profession, too. I think Bobby Kennedy's the bomb, and I'm so glad he did what he did, and I love being able to have a choice. And you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that.
All right. My question, one of them, is the electric here in New York. It's horrendous what they're doing. How did Spain ever get a hold of our electric companies?
Well, Avangrid owns New York State Electric and Gas, and they are a Spanish company. I don't think that has any bearing on the cost of the utility. The rates are dictated by Governor Hochul's Public Service Commission.
Well, I understand that, but what can we do about it? Can you do anything about it?
Well, I'm trying to ensure that you have choice in your energy. And my Energy Choice Act would stop the electrification mandate. It's something I've talked about and worked very hard on, and I expect we're going to have some floor action real soon on. But the electrification mandate is what has fueled her to push so much investment in the grid because they want fully electrified school buses, fully electrified homes. They want you to get rid of your gas furnace. They want you to, really eliminate all use of propane and gas. And I look at the storm that just took place up off of Lake Ontario, and I was thinking about my friends that live up there that got 5 feet of snow. And if the electric goes out in that situation and you don't have any kind of gas backup, you've got trouble.
Or your kids are on a school bus somewhere.
And we saw that in Lakeshore School District where the school buses had to turn all the heat off because the battery didn't work so well on the school bus. What could go wrong, right? 40 kids on a bus, freezing temperatures. This is all fun and games until somebody gets hurt. And these radical climate agenda people that went out and passed all these laws not based on market forces, not based on demand, not based on public hearings, not based on anything more than trying to satisfy the radical left, they have absolute power in Albany. And and the governor has not backed off of all of her climate agenda yet. And even though, estimates are that it's $500 billion to implement. $500 billion that the state has nowhere to get it. They're just going to further chase more and more people out of here. But we're hearing so much from people about their electric bills. But the governor has, made sure her Public Service Commission rubber stamped multiple rate increases over the last 2 or 3 years, and people are now paying the price. This is like her raising taxes without her raising taxes. She's raising your utility bills. And it's furthering the exodus of companies and people leaving Western New York. And it's another slap in the face from a state government that just doesn't get it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's been 40 years since the Assembly and Senate have allowed a Republican bill to even come to the floor here. That's how bad it's been. I mean, but I think you've been involved in all of that.
The Soviet Union has a more democratic government than the state of New York.
Yes, it does. And that leads me to my last question. When are you guys going to start investigating New York? I mean, my goodness, we need Nick Shirley here.
Well, there's seeing this stuff in Minnesota, it just has led me to, it's happening in New York. It may not be as a concentrated pocket like it was in Minneapolis, but it's all over New York. And the amount of, as we have these, blue states, the big handout states that set the table with all of these giveaways, you're going to have a massive amount of fraud. And we saw during COVID that they just stopped even pretending to investigate the COVID fraud that went on in New York. I mean, people were just stealing hand over fist. And every once in a while, you'll see a story somebody got prosecuted. But when you're giving away that much taxpayer money, something's going to give. I will say that the president has said he's going to freeze some of the disbursements to the states until they can demonstrate that there's no fraud and that there's actually real investigations going on. I mean, we have a Medicaid fraud unit in New York that does nothing. It never investigates fraud. And you can't tell me that we spend more on this program, even though we've got half as many people. We spend more than California or Texas, and they have twice as many people. You tell me there's not fraud there. There's not people that are taking advantage of a system. And when we passed a law this year that will put mandatory accountability, multiple times a year verification of eligibility, they're screaming to high heaven. It's like, if you're eligible, you're eligible. If you're not eligible, maybe you shouldn't be on the program, because it's for a specific population, and it's a safety net for those that are the most vulnerable among us, not an open checkbook for anyone that wants to, not work.
Are we ever going to get the illegals off the free programs?
New York State has been fighting the federal government all the way. They have mandated over and over that they have to give their benefits to those that come into the country illegally. The governor has spent millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer money defending, her sanctuary policies, and it's something that, folks, this is a big year. I mean, it's about as far as I can say on this call. This is a big year. People need to remember that. So, but thank you so much for being with us here, Mary. Our time is growing very short.
And thank you for everything that you're doing, Nick.
I really appreciate that very much.
All right.
Great. And we are going to next talk to Charity. Hello, Charity.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thanks for being with us.
Hi. I want to ask you something that hits a little closer to home.
Okay.
When are you going to, I don't know if there's anything that you can do, but get the National Guard out of the prisons. I don't think people realize how many billions of dollars are being spent. They are still in there because she hasn't fixed any of the problem. The staffing is still critically low, and she's covering it by paying the National Guard.
I actually talked to several friends and constituents that are involved in the situation. I grew up with a lot of corrections officers, and when I was home around the holidays, I had several conversations about this, and just the wild expense of housing and feeding and the large pay of the National Guard. I don't begrudge National Guardsmen that are seeing a large opportunity to get paid, but there's no boost in new people being corrections officers, and she's just papered over this problem by using the National Guard. This is not the intention of why we have a National Guard. They're there for emergencies and to defend our state, not to run the prison system. This is absolutely an abuse of the duties of the National Guard. I have not seen one inkling of an increase where they're trying to get people to become a corrections officer. I couldn't.
Why would they?
After what they saw that she did to the corrections officers union, and I was out on those picket lines down, with them, and about this time last year, it might have been February. I mean, it was about 15 degrees outside when we were out there. Why would anyone go into that profession? I really salute the men and women that do it every single day, and it's a very thankless job. But less and less people are taking the test because they see an abusive system. And she wouldn't treat any other union in the state of New York the way she treated our corrections officers. And we need to make sure that everyone remembers that, because unfortunately people have a short attention span and a short memory. But what she did to our corrections officers, especially in our rural communities, and then she's further closed several prisons around the state, it's just wrong what's happened, and there is an abuse of taxpayer dollars going on by just perpetuating the National Guard, because they're making an extremely high rate of pay. There's a housing allotment, and obviously you got to feed them. It comes at a very large cost to the taxpayer. She's not talking about any of that, so I'm glad that you brought it up so more people can learn about it.
And the COs that are still at work, their agreement to come back to work, they're not allowed to talk about it. That's in their thing that they had to sign, that they are not allowed to publicly talk about it.
It's just absolutely ludicrous the way she has treated people throughout this process. It was so demeaning to the people that have given their entire careers. I mean, the people she tried to fire and ruin their lives over them just wanting better conditions. I mean, and the HALT Act within our prisons put their lives in danger every day. And
my huge issue right now is my husband's a retired CO, but is the money on the National Guard. That's my pocket. That's my pocket.
It's
and I'm
all of our
employee.
pockets.
I've got over 30 years as a state employee. She doesn't treat any of us well. I mean, she talks about raising minimum wage and doing this and doing that. She doesn't treat any of us well, but the COs are 10 times worse. And now she's paying the National Guard. And the National Guard tells the CO standing next to them, oh, yeah, we'd work here, but not until she pulls us out of here because we're making more right now.
She is...
It's insane. It's insane the amount of money, and I don't think the taxpayers realize how much money they are spending on it.
I don't think there's any sort of metric that's been made available by the state government. Perhaps we should start asking some public questions. So you've given me a new project. I appreciate that very much. Give my best to all the COs that you talk to. I will always stand with our corrections officers. So thank you for calling tonight. I really appreciate you being on the line.
Thank you.
That draws us to a close on our telephone town hall meeting for this month. I want to thank you for taking the time tonight to hear about what I'm working on in Washington, to express your opinion, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. And we certainly had some colorful calls tonight, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to hear from you. I think you know full well I don't screen the calls, and I'm not afraid to take calls from people that disagree with me, contrary to what some of you put online. But we have a lot of big challenges to tackle for both our nation and for our region. I'm honored to work towards solutions that will help the residents and the families and the businesses of Western New York and the Southern Tier. So please always know that our door is always open to you. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, you need assistance from the federal government, no problem is too big and no problem is too small. I'm always happy to help. I got a staff that does world-class constituent services we're very proud of. And we have offices in Jamestown, in Olean, in Corning, and in Clarence. Go to langworthy.house.gov. You could sign up for our e-newsletter or get any of our contact information there. If I wasn't able to answer your question tonight, you can stay on the line, leave a message, and we'll get back to you. But thank you for joining me. God bless America. God bless you all. Hopefully you have a wonderful day. Have a great rest of your night. And this Sunday, go Bills.